Hello everybody, this is Maniac4Toys. That's right, Maniac4Bricks has a whole nother section of the channel which is still in development, but we're starting things off with something that I've collected as a kid and want to get back to a little bit as an adult. Maniac4Toys is mostly reserved for things that aren't related to LEGO, even though we have a handful of it off screen. But this one is going to be about my collection of Thomas & Friends wooden railway system and figures. This was actually a fun thing for me to grow up with, and even though I have a handful of the track assortment, I was still able to make this really cool town with lots of different ways of interacting with the trains. I actually have a nickname for this called Butterfly, because that's the first shape that I'm seeing about this when I finally finish building it. It has a lot of rounded areas that come together in the tying section in the middle, and yeah, it's like one of those Rorschach paintings where you try to figure out what you see through there, like it changes for every person. So let me know if you see a certain shape out of this in the comments down below, hopefully something that's PG. But anyways, we have a nice little track set up so that there is a lot of room for trains to wander around. The tying point of the whole thing would be this bridge area in the middle, probably the largest of the Thomas structures I have currently, and also the water tower along the other side. I really like how I was able to split the track in between here, so it gives an option of different ways to go once getting out of there. Kind of like an advanced version of a figure eight, which would normally be in the smaller starter set for Thomas & Friends. I also do like the extra little bits so you could wrap it around. It's got a lot of options for moving around here. You even have a lighthouse on the other side, sort of helipad here with Harold, and then you also have a bit of a train yard. Not a lot for the train yard, but still something that works together, so you could fit a few more trains along here if they weren't going to be on the main road. The octagonal shape in the corner, I'm pretty sure is from the Thomas & Friends wooden railway system, but since I have another one or two, it may have been from there. Let me know in the comments below if it's actually different from that. I thought it was close because of some of the railway ties that are etched into it, but I could be wrong about that. But they still work very well with the Thomas & Friends figures. What I also like here is about the water tower is that when you actually bring down the lid for this to fill up a tank, you actually can see the water move in and out of there. It's a cool play feature that I've seen over time, and luckily a lot of these have held together pretty well. They are a bit used over a long period of time and have some etching off of different areas, but they still have a lot of the detail that they first came with, and I'm happy for that. We'll get into the figures in just a moment if I just adjust the camera real quick. So now we'll take a look at my Thomas & Friends wooden figures, and keep in mind that a lot of these will be a little bit scratched up over time, maybe a few pieces a little out of shape, but that's because I grew up them as a kid, and it's going to happen a lot with Playware, but they still hold together a lot of the painting and printing from the original models. I'm really happy with how that looks. Starting things off, we have Harold the helicopter, and while his detail is pretty simple, I do like it, at least for the condition of it. And, you know, it's about half plastic with the propeller, the back of the wings, and the landing gear on the sides. But then the base of it ties it all together being in wood. So, but it works pretty well. We also have a couple of the wooden figures. I don't remember these guys by name, or even if they had names, but they seem like the engineer, conductor types that would normally go along with the figures. You know, the regular trains, obviously out of scale. Even the buildings are out of scale with some of these figures, but they're still charming and they still work well around the track. If they're fit in the right spots, you know, they work very well. And also hold together very well for the detail on them. I should stop saying very well. Up next, we have the man himself, Thomas the Tank Engine. Now, I will have to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I don't know where Annie and Clarabelle are. They are supposed to be with Thomas. They, of the track sets I remember getting as a kid, I do remember one of them, including this bridge, had Thomas, Annie, and Clarabelle as a figure eight starter set, which is a very common type, but for some reason I can't seem to find those other two figures to go along with these as passenger cars. But still, a nice look for Thomas, and he's, you know, got the older style of his face that some people remember, some people, for better or worse, might not remember as, you know, greatly. And sometimes it's creepy, but I think it's still good. Next up, we have Percy, one of my favorite of Thomas & Friends characters. I mean, I love the color green, so that already made me identify well with him, but also character-wise, I definitely enjoyed him on screen whenever I saw him. And keep in mind, when I watched Thomas and Friends, this was back in the VHS days. Like, you can see two of the VHS tapes right here, and back when Ringo Starr was actually narrating some of these, as you can see along the bottom. It's about the late 90s and early 2000s, and, you know, I haven't really watched anything recently as far as Thomas and Friends. But, yeah, there's a look real quick at Percy along all the sides. Next up, we have Toby, which, honestly, I can't remember the character too well right now, but I definitely like the shape of it. It really stands out from a lot of the other trains, being this more trolley type, if I remember correctly. And even the color for it, it's not really like the same brown that other cars like Annie and Clarabelle have, so really do like how this one looks. And yeah, a little charming face on there too. I always thought it was a little bit odd that the trains had noses. I mean, they could have faces all they want, but noses? I don't know. Maybe I'm just used to Lego when they don't have noses, and every once in a while you see a nose and you're like, why is that there? And then next up, we have SC Ruffy, one of the troublesome cars, if I remember correctly. I'm sure plenty of Thomas fans will correct me in the comments on these things. I thought I had one of the troublesome trucks that actually had like a sloped base to it, so they could actually rock back and forth on the track, but this is not one of those, and if I did have it, it's not here, but it still looks very good. I do love how all the printing and painting on here still holds together to this day. It's very well done. And there we are. Now, I did also have a James with the tender, but I don't know where it is. For some reason, when I took out my Thomas and Friends stuff, he wasn't in there, same as Anne and Clarabelle. So, I'll have to look out for those, but I do want to put it on record that I did have those from that age. Next up, when I got back into Thomas and Friends only a couple of years ago, there were several others that I wanted to collect. Ones that I've been wanting for a long time, and was able to find more recent copies of them in the stores. Starting things off here, we have Diesel 10. And if you already saw one of my earlier posts on Instagram and YouTube, you know, you guys know that I know that's the Magic Railroad from Thomas, that movie. And this was definitely one that I wanted back in the day. Yeah, really, I don't care for any version of any of the trains as long as it has a character with it. It works fine, just like with Lego Star Wars and a lot of licenses. But I'm really happy with how this looks, and it also still has like a moving crane function along the top of it. That's just a great, charming thing about it. He has a much nicer face than previous versions. When the Magic Railroad came out, I remember it having a more angry expression on there, but still very cool for having all this together. He does have more of the rickety style of his wheels, which is very cool for the effect of it when it rides along the tracks. There are actually some core members of the Thomas and Friends team that I did not pick up a long time ago for one reason or another. I mean, it's possible that I got some of these through yard sales and garage sales, and I know that Thomas and Wooden Friends are expensive on the whole, even today. But, yeah, there are definitely ones from the long-standing cast that I don't have, like Edward. I mean, I have this one now more recently. I think I'm still missing Gordon. There's probably a couple other ones in between that I'd like to get at some point soon if I can. This has a newer style of face for him, as you can tell by, the eyes and everything. It's a lot larger than before, but still has the same system for working on the tracks, and I do still like how the spokes are done for the wheels. Also does have the separating tender to go with it. And the next step, these next three were ones I picked up again, more recently, but these weren't from the actual stores, like Toys R Us. Instead, these were from Greenberg Toy and Train Show exhibits, like once or twice, outside of just doing my Lego stuff there with a Lego train layout. I actually was able to walk around, check out the other vendors, and I came across some Thomas Wooden Railway stuff. So, there was one I definitely wanted for a long time, yet again, based on the Magic Railroad, and I am not only happy to have my own copy of Lady, but to have one in such great condition. Wow, this is amazing. I mean, there's only a few nicks here and there, but all the painting, it's great. Because I've seen ones before where the face is all scuffed up and hard to see. This is amazing. This is actually one of my more favorite of Thomas figures, and yeah, back then I paid $10 for it, but I still thought, hey, that's not bad for what what condition it's in. It's really well done, and this was something that was loose, not even like in sealed package or anything like that. And then these next two, I just thought they were pretty cool, so I thought I would pick them up as well. This first one is a birthday version of Thomas. I think you could still find this sometimes in the stores. Might be a more recent copy. It might have had like another car or two with it, with like a cake or something that plays sounds. But this is just a cool looking, confetti all over it, and a little Thomas hat, molded on there, and also a better looking face. So for a better version of Thomas, this is pretty good. I'd still like to try to get a better version of the regular Thomas, so that way I don't have to worry about too much of the detail for it. The newer Thomas stuff that's out, as of like last year and this year, kind of worries me. I mean, it has it's still wooden and it still has all the painting along it, but it also has like this wooden trim on every side of it, so it doesn't cover it completely like these older ones. Last but not least, we have another version of Percy. This one, very, very good condition for those wheels and magnets, all that chrome green along it, also on the top. And this one is the celebrating 60 years version of Percy. Again, paid $10 for that. Very cool looking. Again, just a nice updated version of Percy. I wouldn't mind this one as just running around the track as it is. I don't need to get another Percy like I would get for another Thomas. But still, very nice to have all these together. So thank you for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll try to look out for those other ones. Gordon, James, Annie, Clarabelle, probably some other cars and tracks later on. Perhaps later on we can also do an update as far as the track layout, so I can try to play around with these a little bit more. It was honestly a lot of fun to pull these out again, and even for half an hour of doing this, it was still bringing back some good memories. I actually do want to mention at some later point, since this is already a long video, the catalogs that I had from back in the day that showed a lot of these trains and tracks and accessories. I will also touch upon the Brio system, which is something that is pretty compatible with Thomas and Friends. Tried to leave it out of the video as much as possible. And also the Tomy system, which was also incorporating Thomas and Friends with it. So look out for those videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time with more videos.